This is becomeatechpro.com, and we are starting with a new topic, and this is Git and GitHub, right? We'll be looking at Git and GitHub, okay? So when you say Git, Git, it is an important tool in this practice, in the DevOps practice, right? Git is an important tool in the DevOps practice, right? Why is it very important? Okay. Why is it very important? You know, we are all about applications, deployment, and all of that, right? And now, if you look at it, the developers will write codes, right? They write codes using their local terminal, right? And for us to have a uniform or a system where we can have everything coordinated, okay, we want to use a distributed version control system. Okay, now let's take it that on your computer, you are, let's say, you're an author, right? You are writing a book, right? On your computer. You start scribbling things down, ideas come, you modify it, and all of that. You can do it on your computer, right? Other things being equal. Let's say nothing will happen to the system will not crash. We are holding all factors constant, right? Let's say all of those things in place, right? Nothing else will happen. You are writing, you can write, close it. Tomorrow you come back there, you open it, you close it, right? But let's say you are collaborating with somebody, right? You are collaborating with a colleague, right? To provide input on certain things, right? You want to use something like maybe Google Docs, right? Google Docs, so that when you impute your own components and the next person goes there, person imputes his or her component as well. You see, you can always collaborate using that, right? When you are just few people, right? But when you have an application, right? You are writing, developers are writing codes and all of that. Nobody wants to depend on what, just keep it to chances, right? You want to use a distributed version control system, okay, for managing these source codes, okay? These source codes, okay, you want to manage them using a distributed version control system, okay? And what you can use for that is Git, okay? Git is a distributed version control system, okay? Used for managing source codes, okay? Now, when you have Git, what it means is that if there's a particular version, a previous version you want to revert to, it is also possible with Git. You can have different people collaborate, then merge input from different people, right? Which is not possible with your Google Docs, right? Which is not possible with your notepad, right? You want to integrate what different people have worked on such that your inputs are highlighted and the other person's input is highlighted, and you are able to synchronize everything with ease, okay? That is Git, okay? It is a distributed version control system, okay? Now, with Git, different developers will work with Git on their respective computers. They want to work with on their respective computers. And now, if you look at that, you realize that, okay, we have these things being done on different computers. How do we take them to the remote location so that I'm able to see what Lagbaja has done? And I'm also able to, and Lagbaja is also able to see what Tamedu has done, you see? So you want to use a remote platform, okay, for managing, okay, source codes, okay? And that remote platform, okay, is also built on Git, right? You see? So now you want to use Git, okay, as the distributed version control system, distributed version control system, right? And you want to use GitHub, right, as a remote platform for managing these distributed version control systems. Okay, GitHub, okay, GitHub as a remote platform for managing it, okay, like for storing it, okay, for managing source codes, okay. Okay, so this is the system itself, but GitHub is just a platform for managing the source codes. Like, okay, you work on Git and you push to the cloud, okay, you push to remote, okay, then you push on GitHub. That is where you can share it. That's a remote repository where you can share and collaborate, right? Because on Git itself is on your personal computer, right? And this Git we are talking about is something we are already familiar with, right? Remember, we install Git bash, right? We install Git bash, right? So when you have Git bash, it always has Git already in it, okay? But if you are using maybe a Linux server, right? You are using a Linux server, for example, you need to install Git, okay? You need to install Git to be able to proceed, okay? Now, when you talk about version control, okay, when you talk about version control, you see, you can talk about version control from different perspective. You know, I just went straight and talked about distributed version control system, right? So there are others that are not distributed, right? There are others that are not distributed. Okay, you can have local version control system, right? Where work is done on your local computer and updated to get the most required version, the most recent version, okay? Just like the example I gave, where you go in, type in, type in, type in, okay? That's a strictly local version control system, okay? Okay, so now when you say central version control system, okay, there, work is done on the central repository, okay? Like I go on Google Docs, I update it and all of that, right? I go on Google Docs, I put in some updates. You too, you go there, you put in some updates, you see? So in that case, whatever is done is done. If there's a mistake, there's no way to roll back because Lagbaja has put in several entries. Tamedun has also put in several entries, right? So whatever is done, right? But with distributed version control system, right? You know, we've talked about local, VCS, version control systems. Okay, we've talked about local. We talked about central. What is done is done. Okay, and we've also talked about distributed, right? So in distributed, there's always a local repository for each user, such that if there is any need, okay, distributed, if there's any need to revert to another version, it is possible, okay? So that is Git for you, okay? It's a distributed version control system for source codes, source code management, okay? Let's put it that way, management. Right? Visual version control system for source code management. Git here is the remote platform for managing source codes, okay? For Git-based source codes, okay? So now we've looked at these version control systems that we have, right? We've looked at different version control systems we may have, right? We've talked about the distributed, talked about the local, we've also talked about the central, right? Where the central In Central, the developers will not have their local repository, right? They are collaborating using something like Google Docs, right? Everybody's collaborating, right? But with distributed, each developer will have a local repository, okay? So now, if you look at this, you see coding is very important to the software development lifecycle, okay? Because you are developing software, but this development is coming from code. You see, we'll get to create several applications and all of that. And those applications, you see that they are based on codes, right? Different languages, Java, Python, they are different languages, as we've seen in the past, right? They're different languages, right? So these codes, right, are very important, right, when it comes to the software development lifecycle. Okay, so when developers write codes, they need to collaborate and get input from others, right? And you know, it is not safe to share codes using email and other communicators. You want to share codes over Skype, over Slack, over all those Microsoft Teams, right? You know, you don't want to do that. It is not safe because it can be mistakenly shared with people that are not supposed to get access to it. You know, codes are expensive. They are the backbones of organizations, right? Because there are organizations that are built on codes, and once the codes is gone, it's the end, right? Because once a competitor gets access to the code, it means the business is done, right? So that is why we have platforms like GitHub, right? Where you used to collaborate. A more platform for collaborating on source code. Let me put that, collaborating, rating, and managing source codes, okay? You see, that is why we have platforms like GitHub, right? For collaborating and managing source codes, right? So apart from GitHub, right, there are other brands, right? There are other brands other than GitHub, right? There are other brands other than GitHub, okay? Um, GitHub top competitors, okay? Let me just put this. GitHub's top competitors, okay? There's GitLab, there's Bitbucket, you know, competitors. Let's just search this. Okay, there's GitLab, there's Bitbucket, you see. These are different competitors compiled, okay? There's GitLab, there's Bitbucket, and there's just so many of them, right? You see? Let's see. You see? Amazon also has a service, right? Provided, okay? So some of the top competitors for GitHub, okay, doing the same thing, okay? GitHub, okay, to SCM platforms, okay? We have the likes of GitHub, okay? We have the likes of GitHub, okay? GitHub can be used for source code management, and also recently you can use it for GitHub Actions, right? For creating something like pipelines, okay? But we'll get to understand all of this as we proceed. There's Bitbucket, right? There's Bitbucket, there's TFS, right? See, there's TFS, there's GitLab, you see, there's GitLab. And when you look at these top AWS, top cloud providers, right? Top cloud providers, you see AWS also has a service, okay? AWS has a service called Amazon code commit, where developers can commit their codes and all of that, okay? And also for Azure is Microsoft, right? Azure is another top level cloud provider. After AWS, you have Azure, then you have Google coming after, right? So for this, you have Azure has something called Azure Repos, okay? So these are some of the other platforms that does something similar to what GitHub does, okay? So now with our understanding of this, okay, you see, I must have said something like repository, right? I must have uttered the word repository, okay? Repository, when you hear repository, it simply means a storage, okay, for codes, okay? Storage for codes, okay? Storage for codes, okay? Repository can just simply say repository storage for codes, And you usually want to put codes that relate to a particular project. You want to put them in a particular storage, right? So you want to have a repository, okay? So as we proceed, you get to see all of these things that we are saying, okay? So you don't have to memorize them. There are things that will come to you, right? Based on your use, right? You get to see how to use this and all of that. Okay, now we are training to become or improve our skills in DevOps, right? To become or improve our skills in DevOps, right? From wherever field we are coming from, right? We want to now come in and work as DevOps professionals, okay? And now I have been saying developers committing code. So you might be wondering, what is your business with codes, right? What is your business with codes? Okay, so the truth is, you are not responsible for writing codes, right? You are not responsible for writing codes, but you are here, right? Trying to bridge the gap between operations and developers, right? So for you to bridge a gap, you need to understand the language that is being spoken by both parties. Okay. Operation says, oh, we want a software that will collect data from users and do this and do that, and they specify their requirements, right? And developer is there to build based on the requirements, right? And you are there to bridge the gap, right? Okay, because DevOps is not just about tools; it's also about the it's about the communication, right? Because communication is key, right? You want to be able to understand Lagbaja and communicate with Tamedun, right? You want to ensure that everything is working seamlessly, right? You want to automate processes, things that otherwise would have been done manually will get done automatically, right? So that is the DevOps culture, right? That is the DevOps methodology. It's all about communication, tool, and efficiency and effectiveness of work, right? So that is DevOps. So now, given that background, right? So what will be the role and responsibilities of DevOps engineers when it comes to Git and GitHub? Okay. So now, before we go into responsibilities, let's get familiar. Okay. Let's get familiar with what Git is, right? Let's get familiar with what Git is, okay? So let's search for GitHub, okay? GitHub, okay? So GitHub, this is GitHub, for example. This is GitHub, right? But I would like to create a brand new GitHub account for our class so that we can see how it works, okay? I'm already signed in, okay? But let's say I want to sign out now. Let's say I want to sign out. Okay. Let's say I want to sign out. You see, I've just signed out. Okay. So for the first time, if you go to github.com, if you are not signed in, you see something like this. Okay. You see something like this. So apart from GitHub, we also talked about uh, GitLab, GitLab, GitLab. This is their platform. Let's see, this is GitLab. You see, GitLab. This is the GitLab platform. You see, so GitLab. So if it's Bitbucket, you see, this is GitLab. You see, GitLab. If it's Bitbucket, you see, Bitbucket. Okay. So all these platforms are doing the same thing, right? They are doing the same thing, except that some are doing more, right? Some are doing more, okay? Some are doing other things, right? Other than just, you see, like this GitLab, you see, GitLab, you also see that GitLab as, okay, GitLab as CI/CD, okay, continuous integration, continuous delivery, or continuous deployment, okay? So we'll get to see this when we get to automation, right? We'll be automating with Jenkins, right? Jenkins is the tool we'll use. So Bitbucket is also another tool that can be used for CI/CD, you see, CI/CD. It's also used for CI/CD. Also, GitLab as a CI, right? GitLab is also capable of that, right? GitLab CI, you see. So these are different platforms. You can see source code management, you see, agile development, you see, GitOps, right? You see, continuous integration and delivery, right? You see, these are different things that can be done using GitLab, right? Just like Bitbucket, right? You see. So what we want to learn with is GitHub. Okay, so once you understand GitHub, working with GitLab or Bitbucket is going to be a piece of cake because it's the same concept. Okay, the same commands that you use on your Git to get items or to get things done, right? You know, the same Git command you use when you're working with GitHub, right? It's the same Git command you use when you are using um, Bitbucket, right? Or other platforms, right? You see, the same thing is what you use, okay? So you see, this is GitHub, okay? So if you are starting, let's look at their solutions, you see, they also offer CI/CD and automation using something called GitHub Actions, you see, GitHub Actions, you can see, for DevOps, you see, depending on what you want, see, if you click on this, by solution, you see, so these are some of the solutions they offer, right? Continuous testing made simple, you can see. So you can also have pipelines set up using Git, right? So now going back to the default page, okay? So let's see how we can sign up for the first time. If you are using this for the first time, to sign up, you see, you want to click on, you see, if you already have an account, you see, you can sign in. But this is a new class. I do not have an account yet, right? But let me see the email address just to be sure we get the correct email address. Okay. Gmail. Just want to be sure I get the right email address for the class. Gmail. Okay. February 2023 DevOps class at gmail.com. Okay. So let me just see. Okay, so that's the email address. Oh, no, that's not it. Okay. February 2023 DevOps class. February 2023 DevOps class at gmail.com. Okay, that's fine. We have it. So enter your email address, February 2023 DevOps. Just type it in lowercase. DevOps class at gmail.com. You see? So this is the email address. You click on continue. Okay. So let's say we want to enter a password. Right. So let's do that. Okay, continue. Says I should enter a username. Okay. Says I should enter a username. Let's see. I'm sure I already have this username. .com. Okay, so I already have this username. Let me see what else can I use. Let's just use February the same way, 2023 DevOps class, right? Let's use this as the username, okay? So February 2023 DevOps class, I just click continue. Would you like to receive product announcements? No, I don't want to receive anything. Okay, please solve this puzzle. Okay, start puzzle. Pick one square that shows two identical objects. So this square shows two identical objects. Pick one square that shows two identical objects. This one shows two identical objects. So it's verified that I'm human, right? So let's see what's happening. I can go ahead and create an account. See, once I do this, it says something has been sent to my email, a launch code, okay? So I check my email address now. I see that there's a launch code, right? I've received a launch code, okay? So I want to enter what I got, okay? My launch code, let's see. Let's enter the launch code, 1861, 26, you see? So now I'm in GitHub, right? Now I'm in GitHub, right? So I'm registering the account as if, let's just say how many team members will be working with you. I will just say just me, right? You see, this is just for a start, student, right? You see, you can choose this, you can choose 2 to 5, you can choose whatever, right? But you can just leave it as just me, right? And click on continue, right? What do you want? What are the things you are interested in using? Okay. So let's just say I want community. Let's just team administration. Okay. Let's say I want community. Let's say, what else do I want? I want this. Let's just, can just select, right? Collaborative coding. Okay. There's something called code spaces, right? To automate coding, you see. So what else I can just take this, what else? So this is fine. I can just go ahead and select those, right? Then I go ahead and click on continue, you see. So if you look at this, it opens up a page, learn to ship software like a pro, okay? So GitHub gives students free access to the best developer tools, okay? By learning this, you see, you can get 15 gig of code spaces storage, community support, 2000 CI/CD minutes, 500 megabytes of package storage. Okay, package storage. But if it's in a public repository, it's free. Okay, but if you are creating in a private storage, you can only create 500 MB, okay, of private repositories. We'll talk about what these are, private and public repositories, right? You see, it's unlimited. However, what you can store is limited to 500 megabyte per for private repositories, you see? So these are the benefits. In case you are not okay with all those benefits, which I believe is sufficient for us to learn, right? So you can go and choose this other one, okay? But this one is free. So go ahead and click on continue free. You see, initializing your dashboard. Now we have GitHub, right? This is GitHub, okay? We have GitHub setup, right? So there are different things you can do with GitHub. You can see marketplaces, you can see pull requests. We get to understand what all these are. You see repository. We talked about repository earlier, right? We said repository is a storage for codes, right? Repository is a storage for codes, okay? Talked about that. Now we are getting to see repository. You can create a repository. You can create a storage, you see? You can create a repository, you see? You can explore GitHub, you see, for you see? So you come here, you see, you can see profile, your repositories, if you've created any, your projects, if you've created any, you see your stats, maybe you start some, you know, like you highlighted some repositories, okay? You can come here, right? Your gist, your sponsors. So you can sign out here, settings, right? So all these are possibilities with GitHub. Now that we've seen how we can create a GitHub account, right? We've created a GitHub account and we are currently logged in. You see, we are signed in as February 2023 DevOps class, right? That is our name, right? That is our username, okay? So this is for this account that I've created, okay? You can create an account as well, right? So what your responsibilities will be, okay, as DevOps professionals will be, let's see, you'll be able to create, you can create profiles, right? You can create profiles where you have new employees, right? You can create profiles. Let's minimize this, okay? You can create profiles, right? You can create profiles. When you go to settings, you see the different things you can do. See, you can create a public profile. You see, you can create profile. Okay, you can create organizations. You see, the organizations here, right? You can create organization, right? You see, you can transform this into an organization. This, we don't have an organization yet, but you can create one, okay? You can create a new organization, you see? You can create a new organization. So if you are creating a new organization, you see, there's the free option, right? See, there's the free option, you see? You can create an organization. There's a free option, there's a popular one, this is a team, okay? And there's the enterprise, right? There's the enterprise option, okay? So working with an organization, you want to create organizations, right? You want to create organizations. Maybe you have some specific clients, right? You are working with, right? And you want to set up, you want to set up for those clients, right? You can come here and create free organization, right? So you can see the different options, right? That you can have set up, right? You can create a free organization. You see the basics for individuals and organization. $0 per month forever, right? You can create an organization, right? So you can see these are things you can do, right? As a DevOps professional, right? Other than creating organizations, okay, you can also go ahead. Let's see. Let's create a free organization. See, organization name. okay, you see, you can create an organization depending on the name you want, right? Depending on the name you want to call the organization, you can call it, let's call this February 2023 DevOps class. You see? Class, right? So this will be the name of your account on GitHub, right? You see? You can put in an email, right? You can set up, okay, my personal account, whether it belongs to you, whether it belongs to a business, you see? You see? So these are ways of setting up organizations, right? These are ways of setting up organizations. You see, these are ways of setting up organizations. So you can put in a contact email, right? February 2023 DevOps class at gmail.com, right? You see, this is how you proceed, okay? So you can say this organization belongs to my personal account or it belongs to a business, right? So if it belongs to a business, you want to specify, you see, want to specify this, right? You see, if it belongs to a business, you want to specify that. But if it belongs to a personal account, you want to specify this, right? So it says you are required to solve a puzzle as usual, right? To see that we are a real human, right? So identical, this looks identical to me, right? Then it tells you to accept and click on next, right? So now with this, you see, we have, once we do this, okay, February 2023 DevOps class, let's add organization, right? So that it will be different from the regular name, right? That will be different from the regular name that we have because the name of my account right now, okay, see, github.com, you see, name of the account is February 2023 DevOps class, right? Right? February 2023 DevOps class. That is the name of my account at the moment, right? You see, that's the name of my account. This is it. Okay. So if I create an organization, I want to use an organization with a different name, right? With a different name, maybe something different, right? So we can just come here, February 2023 DevOps organization, right? So let's call it that. Okay. So we can come here and say, where is that? This is where we were, okay? Just call this February 2023 DevOps organization, right? We'll just call it Feb 2023 DevOps organization. You see? Can have something like this, February 2023 DevOps organization. You can see it's available. That's why it's organization. Okay, better. Okay, so it's available. So we can go ahead and click on next, right? You see, you can click on next, right? So now, after doing this, you can add users, right? You can add users to this organization, right? You can add users to this organization. For example, you see, you can add users to organizations as a DevOps professional. See, if I search for an organization called, there's a guy called Ademola, right? Olauti. Doesn't say that. Let me write it together. Olauti. You see, there's this guy, Ademola Olauti, right? I can add this guy to an organization. You see, You see, you can add people to organization, right? But I can also go ahead and skip this step, right? That we can see what it's like, you see. Now we have an organization, okay? So if you come up here, you see, you come up here, you see your profile, see, this is your profile. You can see this is the name, right? But in terms of organization, right, you can check for your organizations. You see, shows that I have an organization here, right? I'm the owner of this organization, right? I see this settings bar, right? Because I'm the owner of this organization, right? So these are possibilities, right? So now that we have this, right, you see, if you come up here, we've been talking about repositories, you see, says your repositories, right? Says your repositories. Right now, there are no repositories, okay? There are no repositories. But the thing is, we can create repositories, right? We can create repositories, and repositories could be public or private. Usually, when you go on GitHub, for example, when you go on GitHub, you search for projects, right? You find repository. Let's say you can find, you can just search for repositories, right? You can just search for any repository. Let's say Maven web application, right? You can just search online for repositories. Okay. See, you can search, right? But you can, if you are searching across, okay, yeah, it's assuming you have so many repositories, but we don't even have any, right? But if you want to search across, okay, across GitHub, you see, and just search, you see, you are searching, you are searching repositories, right? All GitHub, right? You want to search across all GitHub. Let's see. What did I paste? Oh, I pasted some things that are not required. Okay, see, I'm searching, right? I'm searching for repositories. I'm able to see several repositories online, right? Several repositories, depending on what I want. Java, right? Depending on what I want, there are several repositories you see, right? So there are several repositories you can just search for online, right? You can search for repositories. And when I search for repositories, remember, I saw some repositories coming up, right? Saw some repositories coming up. Those repositories, I'm able to see them because they are, you see, because they are public repositories, right? Anybody can see them, right? They are over the internet for everybody to see, right? Other than public repositories, there could also be private repositories, right? Private repositories. For private repositories, it is only visible to you and those people that are members of your group. You see, it's only visible to you and those that are members of your team, right? Those are those that are given access to collaborate, right? You see what you can do as a DevOps professional. You can set up a profile, you can create organizations, you can even go ahead and create repositories, right? See, to create repository, you can decide to go to your organization, right? And enter inside this organization because that's the right thing to do, right? You want to go into an organization and create repositories there, right? You see, you can come here and create repositories, you see. You can click here to create a new repository, right? So to create a new repository, all you need to do is to specify whatever name you want to give the repository. Rep1, repository one, okay? Let's say this is what you want to call it, okay? Because you do not have any repository one right here in this organization, you are able to create repository one, okay? You can see the tick, right? You can see the tick. You can create a repository, right? And when you look at this, you can go further to provide further description for the repository, whatever it is you want to type, right? And you see, by default, private is ticked, right? Because it's not impossible that you mistakenly go and make a repository public, right? Whereas the intention is just for it to remain private, right? So because of that, this is set as private by default, okay? So if you want it public, you can click on public, right? You see, anyone on the internet can see this repository. You can choose who can commit, right? You can choose who can see and commit to this repository, you see? So now, this is this. You can either have it as private or public, okay? Public, if you want everybody on the internet to see it, right? And private, if you want to limit who can see it, right? So let's say we want to create a private repository, right? Let's say I want to create a private repository, you see? Now, there's also this option, right? If you check this, it's going to create a README file, right? It's going to create a README file that will, you see, where you can write some description about the project, right? You can create a README file, right? If you check this box, a README file gets created, right? You can see these are some simple ways, right, to get started with creating a repository. Okay. Let's take it that I'm creating this repository, right? I'm creating this as a private repository, you see? If I go ahead and click on create, okay? Because I set up a README file, okay? You can see the environment it takes you to is different, right? You see? It just brings you here. You can come here and modify your README file, right? You can modify your README file, repository one. Okay, this is the name of the README file, for example. Let's say you want to modify it. Okay, you can come here, put in some comments, some maybe title. See, and use that to set title. Okay, and say this. See details below, right? You can do something like this, right? You want to set up a README file, right? You can do this. You can do this and say this is for the February 2023 DevOps class, right? This is the first repository. We are just typing random things, right? The first repository, you see, C3, you can see. So this is just to get familiar with some formatting, right? Then you can go ahead and commit changes, right? When you commit changes, if there are other people collaborating, they get to see it, you see? See what I've entered, repository one, see details below. This is for the February 2023 DevOps class, right? So all of those formatting that I put in there, right? They have a way of displaying here, right? You can see, click on edit, you get to see what is doing what, you see? If I want it to be smaller, I can decide to make it five hashes, right? You see? This one is a single hash, that's why it's very good. So if I want it to be smaller, you can see what I've done. See? You see, I've committed, and you see, this is smaller, right? You see? So these are some of the things you can do as a DevOps professional. You can create repositories, right? So now we've created the first repository. You see? Now this is the first repository, right? Repository one, okay? So for this repository, okay, you can copy the paths, right? See, you can copy the paths. Not that, what do I do? README, okay? So this is this, here's the repository, okay? There's a repository here, right? This is a repository. You can see, let's see what you have here. Display source, okay? You can see all those things are entered. You see, you can edit the file, open in GitHub desktop, you see, different options, right? You see, different options, you see, copy permalink, go to line, you see. Let me reduce this so you can see some other things, okay? See, so this is relating to this particular README file, okay? But if you want to see everything as it relates to the entire repository, you want to click on repository, you see? Now, you see everything relating to the repository, you see? So if you check here, you see you have HTTPS code, you see this HTTPS code, you can copy it, right? You can see this is SSH code, right? You can see, and the GitLab CLI, right? This is GitHub CLI, okay? You are using GitHub CLI to access, so this is what you use, okay? So HTTPS, if you are accessing on the browser, right? I just want to clone a code, right? To get see how to clone codes, okay? So for this, what we need to do is that we've copied this. Remember, this is a private repository, right? And we just created this account. You come to this place, for example. Let's close this, okay? So if I paste that code here, you see, this February 2023 repository one, whatever, you can decide to take out the git at the back, whether with .git or without .git to work, okay? But you're unable to access. Why are we unable to access? We are unable to access because this is a private repository, right? This is a private repository. Only who can access? The only person that can access is February 2023 DevOps class right now, right? That's the only person because that account belongs to him, right? And he has created a repository as a private repository, right? So it is not available. So you see, 404, okay? Showing that the page was not found, okay? 404 error, right? So you see, we've also seen that HTTPS URL, SSH URL gets created, right? When you create a repository, okay? And you can see that from what we've seen now, you see, multiple repositories can be created, right? In an organization, right? So let's say I want to create another repository, right? Let's say I want to create another repository. We'll go back to the organization, right? Right now, you see, we have one repository, okay? If you want to create another repository, you come into here, repository, and click on new repository, okay? Let's say you want to create a public repository this time, okay? And let's call this repository 2, repository 2, okay? Let's say we want this one to be public, right? Okay, we want this to be public, and we can go ahead. Let's say we want to add a README file, or let's create this one without a README file, for example, and go ahead and create a repository. I want us to see how this will be looking different, okay? I want us to see how differently it will be looking, okay? So when you go ahead and create this, we don't get to see all those things that we saw earlier, right? You know, with the other one, we saw README file, it gave us access, right? But this one, because there's nothing there, right? There's nothing there, you see, there's nothing there. It doesn't give us that, right? But it tells us that we can access via HTTPS, you see, can access via SSH, right? You can see URLs that were created. You can copy this, for example, you see, this repository 2, okay? If we go to another browser, you see here it gave us 404, right? But let's say we come here, right, and we try to see this, you see. Is it opening for us? Yes, because it's opening for us because it is not a public, it is not a private repository, right? It is not a private repository. And you see, yeah, it was coming with .git, but when you finish, right, when you enter it, you see, whether you enter it with .git or without .git, you see, what it will resolve to is without the .git, okay? So whether you use .git or you don't use .git, it will still work, okay? So now, given this, you see how public repository works and how private repository works. You see, public, you're able to see, private, you're not able to see. Okay. So another mistake that you could make is, oh, maybe because you open the browser, right? But just know that whatever you open on this particular browser, this is Google Chrome, okay? So if you open another Google Chrome and you try to access, it will show, okay? Because it's still the same Google Chrome. You need to switch to a different browser, maybe like this, you see, like this. This is a different browser, right? And I also have a different browser here, right? Opera, you see. So these are different browsers, okay? So except I log in, right, as February 2023 DevOps, right? I won't see this because it's a private repository. Now, given this, okay, let's go back to where we were, okay? We've seen what we can do, right? We can create a repository. We can, what else? Let's see. So this is the organization, you see, this is the organization, right? You see, also says teams, you see, say teams, right? We've created two repositories. We've created a public repository. We've also created a private repository, right? And we should also know that we can also change a repository from public to private and also private to public, vice versa, right? So let's see, let's take a look at how to go about that before looking at how to manage teams, okay? So what we're going to do here is that we're going to go to this repository we have here, right? This one is public at the moment. If you click on it, right, you see settings, right? This settings is only available to administrators or owners, right? So see, you can even rename the repository. If you don't want this name again, you can give it a different name, right? That name is available. See, there are things you can do. You can rename, right? You can rename a repository, right? You can, you see, you can, let's see what I wanted to do. Okay, you can change the visibility of a repository, right? That's at the bottom, right? At the bottom, you see danger zone, right? Here, you want to change the visibility, right? Change repository visibility, right? This is currently public. I can click on this, right? And change it to private, you see? You want to make it private, you need to confirm that, you see? I've read and understood, you see? See, you can change it to private, see? You can see there's a lot of caution that goes into this, okay? Before you can do this, right? So you see, this repository is now a private repository. So if we go back here, right, and try to access it, you see, let's say we want to access this repository that we used to be able to see, right? You see, what does it say? Page not found. You see, you can change from public to private and from private to public, right? So also, you see, if you look at this, there are so many of these things that we'll still look at in the course of the program, but we want to take it one at a time, you see. We want to transfer this repository to another user. That's also another option, you see. Select, choose an owner, right? This is the owner. Okay, you see, you can transfer it to a different organization. You see, you want to specify a username. Let's say we want to transfer this to Ademola Aloud, that guy that we saw the other time. You see, okay, Ademola Aloud, right? You see, so you need to type this. You see, it says it wants us to type this to confirm. You see, it says it wants us to type that to confirm, right? So you can also send it anywhere, right? Depending. Okay, so if that's the case, you click on this and click I understand transfer this repository. You see? So these are things you could do, right? So now, considering what we've done so far, right? We've seen how we can create a repository. Okay. Now I want to see how to manage, you see, I want to see how to manage a team, right? I want to see how we can manage a team. Let's go back to this organization, right? So you see, here you have team, right? You see, you have team, okay? You have a team, you see. You can create a new team. Let's say you want to create a developers team, right? You can say, oh, dev team, right? You can create a dev team, right? You can create a dev team, right? You can create a dev team, okay? So what are they all about? Okay, team visibility, you see, you can create dev team, you can make team visibility secret or otherwise, right? You see, you can create a team, right? You can create a team, okay? So, and for each of these teams, right? For each of these teams that you've created, you see, look at the team, see, you have a team, you can add a member to the team, right? You can add a member to this team. For example, if you want to add that guy that we keep seeing, right? We're going to add Ademola Lauti to this team, okay? See, you can invite Ademola to this team, right? You can invite Ademola to this team. You see, it shows up as pending, right? There's a pending request, right? Can also come and add someone else. Let's say becometechpro.com. I think we have something like this for the previous class. Tech Pro, you see, can invite this guy, November 2022 DevOps class, you see, and also invite this guy to the group, you see. So for each of these invitations, right? For each of these invitations,
I have a question.
there'll be, hello?
Hi,
Okay,
I have a question.
go ahead, please.
To create a team,
Mhm.
it has to be in the private organization, right?
Okay, yeah. You know, we've created an organization, right?
Right.
So to create a team in the organization, you are trying to look at, oh, who do you want? You know, we created repository. Repository is different, right? Repository is like the storage, you know.
Right.
You have
Yeah.
in the house, you have some cabinets where you are keeping things, okay? So you can say those are repositories, right?
Yeah.
Now, we now want people to manage these repositories, right? We want people to manage these repositories, to manage the cabinets, right? You know, some people you give them access to certain cabinets, some people you don't want to give them access, some people you want to even give them the key, right?
Right.
To open and lock, or to even add people, to add code to the cabinet so that can assign, right? So
Right.
these are people we are adding to different teams, right? You want to create teams, right? So you could just go ahead and add members to the to the organization, right? But you
Right.
want to create specific teams, right? Maybe development team, or maybe admin team, maybe operations team, you know. So
Yeah.
as a DevOps engineer, you're able to do this, right? And once you do this, if there's any resource, right, that has been created in the private repository, those
Right.
people, because of their virtue of being members, will be able to see these resources.
Okay.
You see?
Yeah.
So what I want to do now is that now I've sent out invitations to two guys, right? You see, you can't force anybody to come, right? You can only send invitations, right? But it's now left for the person to go and log in, right? Okay, to go and log in. For example, let me bring this up. You see, we come here, you see, this is the one sent to November 2022 DevOps class. That's become a Tech Pro, you see. It shows up here that February 2023 DevOps class has invited you, you see. So I go ahead, I open this, okay? But if I want to join using this browser, there's going to be a problem because I'm currently logged in on this browser, right? I'm currently logged in on this browser, okay? So what I can do is that I can copy this link, okay? You see what I've done? Ordinarily, I will just click, right, to go in. But because I'm not a man of many GitHub accounts, right? So I need to go to a different browser, like this browser, put this here. I want to accept the invitation, you see? I want to accept the invitation. It tells me to sign in. I put in November, right? November 2022 DevOps class, you see, right? At gmail.com. You see, at gmail.com. Then I come here, I enter the password to GitHub because this authentication is required to ensure that not anybody can invite anybody, and not anybody can accept any request. I think I got it wrong. What's wrong? See? Okay, so you see, now what do I see? It says you've been invited to this organization. Join or decline. You see? So owners of this may be able to see if you have two-factor enabled or not. You see? Your public profile information, certain activity within the organization, country of request origin, your access level, you see, your IP address, you see. So you can click on this to join, you see. So right now, what happens? Remember, before now, I couldn't have access to this repository one, if you remember, right? If I refresh this now, because I'm logged in on this browser as November, and I'm now a member of this organization, even without going far, I already see signs, you see, I'm now able to see this repository because I'm now a member of this organization, you see? So here, I'm also able to see all the repositories for February 2023 DevOps organization. But am I February 2023 DevOps? No, I am Become a Tech Pro, right? That's November 2023, 2022 DevOps class, right? That's the name I used then, okay? But now I have a unique name I can be using going forward, right? So you can see here we have teams, right? You can see here we have teams, right? There's just one team. You're able to see the dev teams. And how many members do you have in this team? You have two members, right? Which is the owner and you, right? You see, which is the owner, and you can see this belongs to the owner. You can see the members, Become a Tech Pro, which is November 2022 DevOps class, right? And you can see the real owner, right? You can see. So there are two members here, okay? So if I also go ahead to, right now, you see, there are two members, okay? If I go ahead to my other accounts, right? And I just go ahead and click on accept the invitation, right? You see, this guy is even able to see everything, right? So if I just go ahead and accept that invitation sent by February 2023, you see, I've clicked on accept, okay, from another browser. So if I refresh this page now, you see that there are three people in the organization, you see. We now have three members, right? Which is this guy, and this Ademola guy, right? You see, we have three members in this organization. So as a DevOps professional, so it's going to be your responsibility to manage access, right? You can create multiple teams, right? You can add users, just as we've added, you see, we've added users to the team, right? If you check the team now, you see, this guy is a member of this team, dev team. He's also a member of this organization, right? You see, so this is how we go about it. See, here I'm logged in as who has become a Tech Pro. That's the November 2022 DevOps class, right? And in this other browser, right, I'm logged in as, let me close this now. See, in this other browser, I'm logged in, you see. You can see, if you come here, you see the invitations that we sent out. there's nobody pending any longer, right? There's nobody pending any longer. You can see here, maintainer, you can filter by row, and everyone can filter. If you want to see just the maintainer, right? If you want to see just the members, these are members, these are everyone, right? You see, you can see maintainer, you see, okay, you can see that's just the maintainer, okay? So let's see what we can also do, okay?
Are you considered
Hello? Hello?
can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you now, yes.
Okay. Do I look at you as the owner?
Okay, you look at me as the owner, right?
Yeah.
And when you say me, I'm February 2023 DevOps, right?
Right.
And these other guys are just members that
Right.
I added, right?
Yes.
I added these guys, right? This is name, this is name, right? You see? So these are members I added, right?
Yes.
You can see the maintainer can be seen as the owner, right? The maintainer can be seen as the owner.
Okay.
But there are also other possibilities, right? You see, there are also other possibilities. If you look at the members we have now, okay, you could say this member, right? Okay, this member that you see now, okay, these are the members you see. This member has a read access to this repository, okay?
Yeah.
And it has a read access to this other repository, okay? But let's say the other guy, right, that we see at the other hand, right, this guy, which is become a tech pro, right? So this become a tech pro guy, right? This become a tech pro guy. If we look at him, you see that he has, okay, he's able to see, let's see, repositories of the organizations he's in. You see, this is the organization, okay? So if it comes to this organization, you see, it's also part of other organizations. You see, this particular organization that he is in, okay, there are two repositories here, right? So you can actually see these repositories, right? See, you can see these repositories. Okay, you can see these repositories, although they are empty, but this one is not empty, right? You can see this repository. But looking at this, you see, this guy is just a regular user of this repository, okay? But it's not impossible that you want to upgrade him, right? He's been a good guy, right? You want to upgrade him and he's reliable. Come here, can click here, and you say, okay, I want to manage his access, okay, to this repository, this particular repository, right? Can come here and manage his access, right? You can see he has this privilege, right? Right now, you see, this is the privilege he has. You can come here and edit his privilege, right? You see, you can edit his privilege. You see, you can come here and say you want him to have no permission at all, okay? Or just a member of the organization, right? You can say you don't want him to even see, to clone or pull or do whatever. So you see, but you can also come here and say you want to make him able to write, okay? Able to clone, push, and do all of those things on the repositories, right? So as a DevOps professional, this is something you want to do because you have different developers that will be working on different projects, right? And you want to be able to give them certain access, right? You want to give some maybe just read access, right? You want to give some maybe write access, okay? And you want to give some admin access, right? Maybe there's a senior DevOps engineer, right, that you are reporting to, that you want to give that person, like admin access, right? So you can come here and set this, you see, change base permission to admin, right? This may change the permission that the organization's three members have on its repositories, okay? So this is changing base permission, right? So this will change permission for everybody, right? So if you come here, you see, allow members to create teams, you see, allow users with read access to create discussions, right? You see, allow, you see, for issue detection, repository visibility change, right? So let's take it that we want everybody, to have, right access, you can set it up like this. So once you do this, the base permission will change, you see. Base permission will change from just read, okay, to write, okay. They are able to commit changes and do all of those things. And this is necessary because you are creating, like setting up for a development team. There will be different teams that you need to create. We've just created one team, right? So, and you want all the members of the team to have the same rights, right? You want them to be able to commit codes, you want them to be able to do all of those things, right? So you want them to be able to have similar rights. You can see update in progress, right? You can see update in progress. So let's see, refresh to see if this is done. You see, it's done, right? So if you go back to where we're coming from, where were we? Right? You see, you can see here we have teams, right? Right? You have teams. So we have the dev team here, right? We have the dev team, right? We have the dev team. And if you check, there are 3 members in the dev team, right? There are 3 members. So in the dev team, which are these guys, okay? So let's see what they are capable of doing now. Visibility, okay? They are visible, okay? So let's see what they are, okay? These are the team members, okay? Each of them. So let's click on this. So here we have members, right? You can see discussions under there, discussions. There are no discussions yet. You can see the members that we have. You see, these are the members, right? You can see. Let's see what each member, you see. Let's see each of the members. These are the different members we have, you see. These are the different members we have. These are the members we have, you see. Right now, if you come here, you see that these guys, all of them, they now have right powers, right responsibility on the repository, which makes sense because you are creating a dev team, developers, and developers are the ones that will be committing codes, right, to GitHub, right? So you want to give them right access, okay? They can write, they can push, they can pull, they can do all sorts, okay? But if you want this member, for example, okay, this is just a member, right? But if you want this guy, okay, if you want this guy to have maybe full administrative access to the entire organization, you can elevate him, okay? Or you can even go and pick someone else, okay? Because we want to look at this guy, is a senior member of the team, okay? This guy is a senior member of the team. You can come here, you see, this also has right, you see, because we changed the baseline, you see, base for the entire department, for the entire team, right? So yeah, but you can come here and say, okay, this guy, I want this guy to have full ownership, right? So you see, now you see his access is special. It's now admin, right? You see, when we changed him from regular member, for regular members, we elevated everybody to be able to write, okay? But for this guy, you can specifically make him an admin, you see? So doing this, we've made this guy an admin, okay? So, but before we proceed to making him an admin, let's take a look at something, right? So if you recall, when this guy comes here, right, Right now, everybody has right access, okay? Everybody has right access. But even with the right access, I don't see settings tab here, right? It means this guy is unable to change the name of repository, do all of those beautiful things, right? You can see. If you come here, you see what this guy has, you see, he has settings and all of that, right? For this organization, right? Even if you go and pick a repository, let's say, I want to pick a repository from here. See, let's say I want to pick a repository. So these are the repositories we have here, right? So if you come here and see this repository, for example, right? You see settings here, code, issues, pull requests, actions, project, security, insights, and settings, right? So if you go and check this guy, despite all of those things, you see, if you click on this repository, for example, for this guy, we don't see settings, right? Because it's just a member, right? And we've not given everybody admin access, right? We only stepped everybody up to right, from read to write. Okay. Let us say we now decide to switch. Okay, we now decide to switch and say, oh, for this guy is reliable, let's make him owner, right? So we've made him owner now. So if you come here, right now, you see here, there's no settings, but if we refresh this right now, you see, there's now a settings tab. So this guy is now able to do powerful things, right? It's like having sudo as power, right? To make modifications and do all of these things, right? So this is this basically, right? So looking at what we've done so far, right? We see we've been able to manage access to the repository by creating group, adding members to the group, right? And we also created repositories, right? We've also created repositories, you know. It's also possible to say, okay, these are repositories that have been added, okay? You see, we've been able to see how to change things around, right? So these are some of the things we'll do as DevOps professionals, right? You see, you can change status, you can create teams, add people, you see. These are people we have, you see. These are people we have, you see. These are people we have. There's nobody pending at the moment, right? There are no invitations sent. There are no failed invitations. They're all accepted, you see. So these are some things you can do, right, with GitHub as a DevOps professional. Okay. Now, let's see, how do we set up Git, right? How do we set up Git, Git on our server, right? Right now, I have Git bash, okay? Already, let's clear, right? Let's clear. Okay, I need to exit from here. Or alternatively, let me not use this, okay? Let me not use this. Let me go and use my mobile XTEM, okay? Let me sign in using mobile XTEM, okay? So if I come here, come to Amazon Web Services, I already have it open. Let's come here and log into February 2023 DevOps class. Okay, so let's call this guy. Let's call this password what February 2023. Okay, so that's this guy. So Ohio is where we've been creating our resources. Let's say we create this EC2. We already have this instance, so we can still work with this instance, right? We can still work with this instance at the moment, okay? Can work with this instance. So let's start this instance, for example. All right, we want to start this instance. You see? So let's wait for the public IP address to come up so we can proceed. You see, you can use Git bash or any other SSH tool, right? The reason why I want to use this, okay? The reason why I want to use this is that I want to also be able to demonstrate something, right? Which will be too easy on Git Bash, okay? So I want to be able to demonstrate something, okay? So that's why I want us to use mobile extend, right? So we are going to set up our server and see how we can get things set up, okay? So this is where we are, okay? The IP address is here up now. It should be, yes, it's running. So let's say I want to come here. Let's say I want to start a new session. What do I do? Let's say I want to start a new session. New session, SSH, right? I want to put my IP address, specify username, that's EC2-user, right? EC2-user. I want to come here and use private key, right? I want to use private key. So the private key is here, right? February 2023 DevOps class.pem. Okay, so with this, I'm able to get in. Okay, so this is for our class, right? Let's clear this and see, let's come on in here. Okay, let's come in here. Okay. So once we have this, the next thing we are going to do is that if you see, this is the server we've been using all along, right? We have all sorts of things here. Okay, so let's see whether we have Git here, right? Let's see whether we have Git already installed. Okay, Git -- version. Okay, if you run Git -- version, it tells you the version of Git you have. You know, I told you that we'll be seeing this very often, right? Okay, it's not because we've done anything wrong, but because we are trying to check whether there's even Git in this system, right? Okay, we're trying to see if there's Git, trying to get the version of Git that we have, right? But unfortunately, there's no Git, okay? So what it means is that we need to bring Git into this environment, right? We need to bring Git into this environment, right? So to bring Git into this environment, you need to use this sudo yum install Git, okay? So if you do this, you install Git because there's no Git here already, okay? But if you were using your mobile extend, right, and you check Git -- version, right, even without installing anything else, okay, you see that you already have Git, okay? Because that Git, right, that Git that you have, Git bash, is the same as Git, install Git. You say install Git, go on the internet and say install Git, right? Install Git. What do you see? Install Git. This is what we used, if you remember, this is what we used for installing Git bash, okay? So Git bash is as Git by default, you see? Git bash already has Git by default, okay? So now, this is just by the way, right? So right now, we've installed Git, right? We've installed Git. So if you check Git -- version, you see, tells us the version of Git that we have installed. You see, tells us the version of Git that we have installed. Okay, that's the version of Git we have installed. So now that we have installed Git, okay, you see, this is my computer. Everything is looking so awkward, right? So if you are working for a client or a project on a project or whatever it is you are working on, okay, you want to have everything organized in a directory, right? For example, right here, I can say within here, I want to create a project directory, right? Make directory. This is my right? You see? So that when you are looking for projects, you know where to find them, right? Projects, right? Projects. I want to put your projects in here, you see? So now I've created a directory. I've called this directory projects, right? So if I cd to projects, you see, if I cd to projects, you see, ls right now, there's nothing inside projects, right? But it's possible that right now I'm working for maybe Nestle, for example. Let's say I'm working on a Nestle project, right? So what it means is that you want to put your Nestle projects inside a directory named maybe Nestle, for example, right? So let's say, okay, I have a directory that I want to work on. Let's say Nestle. Okay, so I'm making another directory, mkdir. Let's call this Nestle, right? Let's see if I can use this and cd to Nestle, right? Right, you see? So what I did here is that I used one stone to kill two birds, right? I ran two different commands and used this and, okay, to effect them simultaneously. You see? Here, I'm in projects, right? I made a directory, called it Nestle, and seeded into that directory. You see? I made a directory and seeded into the directory. Right now, where am I? PWD. You see, I'm in Nestle. You see, I'm in Nestle. Okay. So these are some of the ways you can navigate, and you just take it little at a time, right? Understand the mkdir part, right? Understand the cd part. Now we are going into some other interesting areas, right? So this is not about Git. We are just trying to explore our knowledge with Linux, right? Since we are working with Linux, you see why Linux is important. We want to use Git. Now we are navigating our Linux commands, right? So now, once you do this, you see, we are in Nestle directory, right? We are now in Nestle directory, right? So any project I want to do, maybe I want to write code as a developer or something, I need to write them right inside this directory, right? So the first thing I need to do, okay, I'm a developer. I want to work on codes, right? I want to write codes. I want to do all those good things, right? The first thing I want to do is to initialize Git in that directory. This directory, I want to initialize Git in this directory. Okay. So to initialize Git, you use the git init command. Git init. Init from initialize, right? You see, git init. Okay. I want to put git in it. I want to put git in this directory. Okay. I want to initialize git in this directory. Okay. So if I do this, you see, initialized an empty directory. Okay. So if you look at this, right, if you do ls, what do you see? Nothing, right? But if you do ls-a, you see a directory called .git directory. Okay. So it is not impossible that, oh, you realize that, oh, I mistakenly initialized Git in my home directory. What do I do? It's not the end of the world, okay? There's always a way out, okay? So let us take it that you do not intend to initialize Git, okay? You do not intend to initialize Git. All you need to do is to come here and do rm-r, okay? You want to remove a directory. Which directory? Called .git. This directory you want to remove, okay? But I would like to, I'm a very visual person. I like to see what is happening, right? At the back end, I put the dash V option, right? Okay, so if I do this, you see all of these things are inside that .git directory. You see, everything got removed, you see? Everything got removed. So If you check now, this is no longer a Git repository, okay? Because if you check ls-a, okay, it's no longer a Git repository. It's just a regular repository, like every repository that you have, okay? So you see, now, when you look at this, okay, when you look at this, okay, when you look at this, you see that this is a directory, right? So right now, this is just a regular directory, okay? But when you initialize Git, right? When you run Git in it, okay? When you run Git in it, to initialize Git, you see, some things happen, okay? Some things happen. Some things happen when you initialize Git, okay? 3 logical areas are created in that particular directory, okay? 3 logical areas. You don't see them physically, okay? It's just logical, right? But as we start to work, you begin to see those areas materialize based on what we are able to achieve, okay? And these 3 logical areas are, let's have a list of the areas, okay? When Git logical, let's say logical areas created when Git is initialized in a directory, okay? So there are 3 logical areas that are created, okay? There are 3 logical areas that are created. It's just logical area. We won't see them physically, okay? So there's the working area, okay? There's the working area. Let me write working area. There's the staging area. Okay, and there's the local repository itself. Local repository. Remember what we're talking about, distribution version control system? We're looking at it as it is different from the central repository. We said the central repository does not have a local repository. So it's not possible to revert to previous versions, right? Whereas with distributed version control system, apart from the remote repository, there's also the local repository, right? So this is the local repository. So there's the staging area, there's the working area, and there's also the local repository, okay? So for you to know, okay, what's the area, right? What's the area that we want to know the area that something is in, okay? All you need to do, let's say git cat, you see, right now, if I come here and I run git status, see, git status, you see, it says on branch, master, no commit yet, nothing to commit, right? You see, create or copy files and use git add to track, you see, it's giving us guidance, right? I just checked git status and it started to give us ideas, right? That right now is on branch master. There are no commits at the moment, okay? And there's nothing to commit, okay? So I can create or copy files and use git add to track, okay? So what happens is, if I come here, right? And I say, let me create a file. Let's just say I want to touch a file. Let's say this file I'm touching is a Java file. Let's say touch. Let's touch first.java. Let's say this is the file name, right? This is the code, right? This is the code, okay? First.java, right? Okay. .java is an extension here, right? Just as you have .py for Python, okay? You have .java, you have .txt, okay? .xls for Excel, those are code extensions, right? .sh for shell scripts, right? Those are code extensions, right? Those are file extensions, I mean. Those are file extensions, right? So we can have this file, right? We just open this file. We've not done anything with this file, right? Okay, we've not done anything with this file. But if we come here and check git status again, okay, it shows file.java in red, okay? So when you see something displayed in red or indicated as untracked file, okay, it means that the item is in the working area, right? When it's indicated by untracked files, okay, it means it's in the working area, okay? So what it means is that whatever I do, nobody sees it. I'm just there working. I'm in my computer, in my working area, right? So it is not Lagbaja's responsibility of what I put there. I might have some issues with the codes. I don't know what I'm doing at the moment. I'm just typing rubbish. I'm just doing all sorts, right? I'm in the working area, right? Nobody sees anything, right? Nobody sees, it's not tracked, right? You see, it's untracked, okay? So working areas are for untracked, let's say it's for untracked files. Let me see. Untracked files, you see? Files, right? It's for untracked files, right? It's for untracked files and it's represented and it's shown in red, okay? Let's say, and it is shown in red, you see? Red, okay? Red. So if you look at this is an untracked file. I've not done anything, okay? Not doing anything does not mean imputing, right? Even if I go ahead and veer into first, right? .java, and I decide to put in some codes, then we are just typing this. I to insert, okay? I to insert, okay? So say this is the first Java code, right? So doing this is not sufficient to say, oh, yeah, right? You see, this is not sufficient to say, yeah, I've done something, right? That it should not be in the escape column WQ, okay? So right now, I've made a modification to the file, right? But does this mean that it has become a track file, right? No, it is still untracked, you see? It is still untracked, okay? And it's still showing in red. That's why the input, right? Because it is now within my powers to determine whether it is tracked or not, right? Right now, as far as I know, it is an untracked file, right? Nobody sees anything I'm doing, right? It's not recorded, it's not tracked, okay? So it's still an untracked file, you see? Untracked, and it's shown in red, okay? So let's say for some reason, okay, and this is working area, right? This is working area. Once you see untracked files, it's in the working area, right? See, there's nowhere we see, oh, this is the working area, right? Once you see untracked and you see it in red, it is in the working area. Now, if you want it to be tracked, okay, if you want to send it to the next area, right? You want to stage it, staging area, right? You want to stage it where you want people to be able to see, you want to stage, okay, you still have the opportunity to on stage, right? But you want to stage, right? So if you want to stage, the thing you want to do is that you want to ensure, right? You want to ensure that you come in here, right? You see, they've given us guide, right? So if you use this command, git add, then specify the file name, okay? it will become a track file, right? Let's say git add, you see, they are giving us direction, add. Then you specify the file name, let's say first.java. Okay, first.java, okay. We can enter this to move it to another, you see, another area, right? Which is the staging area. But there are different ways we can do this, okay? Right now, we have just one file, right? We can go ahead and do this, okay? Alternatively, instead of doing that, you can just say, if there are more than one files, right? Maybe multiple files, you have another file, more files, right? And you want to add every file, right? In this working area, you have multiple files, for example. You can just use dots, right? Git add dots, meaning git add everything in the present working directory, okay? Dots, okay? You can also use git add wildcard, right? You remember wildcard, we've used it a lot. So everything, okay? So these are ways you can decide not to specify the file name if you want multiple files, right? If you want multiple files, okay? And also, if you have, maybe you want to just track some files ending with .java, you can just say .java. Maybe you have some .py files, .txt file, .sh files, and all of that, right? And you want to just add those files ending in .java, and just use this, right? Wildcard.java, right? Then alternatively, if there are multiple files, right? We know there's first.java, right? And there might also be a second.java, right? You can also do this to add multiple files, right? By just putting spaces in between them, okay? So, but in this case, they've recommended we use this, but we can choose not to use that. Let me just use wildcard, right? I just use wildcard. So if I do this, you see, if I come here and check my Git status again, what do I see? I see it's no longer showing as red, but now it's showing as green, right? It's just like you are driving, right? You are driving, it's all green, traffic lights. It turns yellow, right? Then it turns red, right? But this time, it's like it was initially red, but turns green to give you, okay, permission to move, okay? Okay, so it means you can now commit changes, right? You see, right now, it is where? It is in the, staging area, right? It's in the staging area, staged, okay? You can see it doesn't show as untracked files any longer. But it goes on to tell us that, okay, you can actually unstage as well, okay? You stage down. Let's say, okay, you are not done. You think there's still some things you need to do, right? Which is possible, right? There are still some things you need to do. You can come here and on stage, right? And it gives us the option, right, to use. You see, it's helping us, right? It's giving us expo, right? See, we do not have any reason to memorize anything. You see, it tells us, you see, you can run this to on stage, but you need to specify the file. Okay, so the file is first.java, right? First.java. Okay, so to on stage, we do this. Okay, once we do this, we realize that it's going to be back in the working area again, right? It's going to be back in the working area again, right? So if you use this, it's like removing rm cached first.java, right? Remember your rm command, but this time around, for all Git commands, they start with Git, right? But your knowledge of shells of Linux will also help a long way, okay? Because you see, rm is to remove. You want to remove this from cached, okay? So you see, you get to understand it with ease, right? So if I run this, it works, okay? But there are also other ways I can reset, right? I can use the git reset command, okay? So I can use the git reset, okay, to unstage all files, right? If I just say git reset, okay, to unstage all files, okay, but if I want to just reset this particular file, right, I can just use reset as well, okay, and not even specify this. I can also specify this to reset this particular file, okay. So if I decide to say git reset, you see, I run the git reset command. So if I check my git status again, you see, it's been unstaged, okay? So I can either use what was recommended, you see, there are several options to go with, right? Either use what was recommended, right, which would have given me a response, a solution, but we are trying to look at other solutions as well, right? I use git reset to reset all, right? But if we want to reset a particular, right, a particular file, we need to specify the file name because it is not impossible that you have multiple files in the staging area, right? You know, we've talked about working area, right? We've talked about working area, okay? Okay. We've now talked about staging area, okay, for track files, for files, is for files to be committed, right? To be committed. You see, everything we are doing now that we've done so far, we've only done them on Git, right? The developer is able to move from working area to staging area and all of that, right? And this is shown in green, right? Shown in green. But everything we've done, there's nothing that has gone to GitHub yet, right? So that is when we now need to understand some more, right? So this is the introduction. We've seen there's a working area and there's a staging area. So from the staging area, where you now commit, it goes to the local repository. But before you do that, okay, there are some things we need to set up, okay? Before we do that, there are some things we need to set up, okay? Before we do that, there are some things we need to set up, okay? So once we set up and we put this in the local repository, okay? Once we do this and we put it in the local repository, it means it is now available, you know, the moment you put it in the local repository, right? Even if you've not pushed it to the remote repository yet, okay? The moment you put it in the local repository, it is recorded as being in the local repository, right? So if we decide to put it in the local repository now, and we do nothing until 2 months' time, okay? Anytime you check the remote repository, it will show as if you had put it there 2 months ago, right? Depending, right? So this is how powerful Git is as a distributed version control system, right? Because you can have different people collaborating, right? Right now, there's no collaboration. It's just me doing my thing, right? I'm working in the working area, you know. I'm working in the working area, you know. I'm working in the working area. But before you can commit, right? You need to take some steps, okay? You need to do some configuration, okay? And this configuration, we need to set it up, okay, in Git and GitHub, okay? We need to set up the configuration here, okay, before we commit, okay? Otherwise, it will ask, who are you that you are trying to do this, right? Let's take it that we don't know what we are doing, right? Let's take it. Let's just see what will happen, okay? You see, let's see what will happen. So right now, git status is this, okay? So if we do git add, right? Let's use wildcard this time, or dot, or whatever it is we want to do. Let's see. We check git status again, right? Check git status, it says changes to be committed, right? So as I've told you, there are some things we need to do, right? That we need to do to be able to proceed. But I'm taking it that we've not done those things, okay? And let's say we want to even commit, right? We want to commit, okay? Let's take it that we want to commit, okay? So if you want to commit, you can say git commit, right? You want to use git commit, okay? You want to commit, okay? Dash M, you need to put dash M because it's compulsory you put in a message, right? You can say first commit, you see, you can put something like this, first commit, you can put something like this, first commit, right? Put something like this, first commit, okay? So when you run this, okay, it will move this file from the staging area to the local repository, okay, you see? Now, you see, what message do we get? You see, we ran this git commit, says master root commit, first commit, committer cloud user, okay? Your name and email address were configured automatically based on your username and hostname. Please check that they are accurate, okay? You can suppress this message by setting them explicitly. Run the following command and follow the instructions in your editor to edit your configuration. You see? You see? So there are some things we need to do, right? Which we've not done. Okay. There are some things we should do, which we've not done. Okay. Now it's telling us what to do. Okay. It's telling us what to do. Okay. So the first thing we need to do, okay, is to specify a name, right? You need to specify a name, you see. But now it has already created a configuration file, okay, which it wants us to edit, right? It has created a configuration file, which it wants us to edit, right? So it wants us to edit, right? It wants us to edit. So looking at this, what we can do is that we can either come here, right? And run this, okay? If you run this, you see, it says this user is per configuration file, right? User, you see, it decided to call me cloud user, right? Based on my AWS details, right? And it's using the IP address. You can see what it's using. Okay, so these are not my details, right? Just configure this automatically, right? So what I can do, I know my name, right? My name is February 2023 DevOps class, right? February 2023 DevOps class. I can either come here, okay? Can either come here and modify this, okay? Using this edit, okay? I can modify this. Or alternatively, I can do what I should have done ab initio. Okay, so it's 6 p.m. So at this point, I think it's a good time to call it a day so we can continue in the next session, right? So we can come in with clear head and, you know. So let's just exit, for example. Let's see, exit, okay? Let's exit. So if I do my git status, right, you see, it's saying nothing to commit, right? Because this has already been committed, but committed to where I do not want it committed, right? Because I can always come and fix the identity, right? I can come here and fix the identity accordingly. I'm not cloud user, right? There's a Git account that I want it associated with and not this, right? So based on this, we'll come to an end of today's session. So in the next session, we are going to pick up from here. Do we have questions?
Why do we use white cards?
Okay. Okay, you use wildcard because in some situations you have you want to be able to capture many how do I put it now? Many items, right? Let's say in my repository, for example, right? I might have 15 files, right? That I want to push to the staging area, right? So I can't start adding first.java, second.txt, third.this, fourth.that. It's just a long process, right? I could decide to just say git add and I put dots. That's everything in this place, right? Then I can also say wildcard, right? Which will also cover everything. That way, everything I have in that directory will go to the staging area. Okay. But it's also not impossible that at times you have your, how do I put it now? You have maybe some certain extensions, right? Maybe you have a situation where you have some files ending in .java, right? Or .txt. And what I want to do is just to take care of the .java files, right? I can just say git add, right? Let's put that there. Git add, you see, git add, wildcard, everything ending with .java, you see, right? I can even say everything ending in wildcard Java, right? This also works, right? Can I say everything ending in .java, right? So the reason why I decided to say dot, I decided to remove the dots, right, is because the other time I said git add dot, right, everything in this present working directory. The dot represents present working directory, right? Everything within this present working directory. So if I decide to now say wildcard, it still means everything. But if I say wildcard.txt, it means everything ending in .txt or everything ending in txt, which is still the same, right? So these are ways we can use wildcard. Okay, so you're welcome. So if there are no other questions, we call it a day. So meet you in the next session.
All right.
Bye for now.
Bye.